Welcome back. In this lecture, you're going to learn to understand the locations of your traffic and finding what a high quality location is, what a low quality location is, and what to do with this information. This is absolutely vital to grow your business and marketing strategy. So let's dive in. Now, in order to find the location of our users, we're going to go to the left and click on Reports, and then go down to User, Demographics, and Demographic Details. Now, while you get the charts up here, it gets really interesting when we scroll down, gonna zoom out, and we start looking at this more in-depth information where we can see which country that is getting how much traffic, how many of them that are new users, what the engagement is, and how much total revenue that they are making. So the first thing we're naturally going to look at is where is the majority of our traffic coming from? And right now we have arranged all of our traffic in order of most users. On the top by far is the United States with 38,500 almost. And remember, this is per 38 days. Under there, we see Canada, we see India, China, Japan. Now, the big mistake that most people make is thinking that, okay, that means that the United States is by far the best traffic. The second best traffic would be Canada, third would be India, and fourth would be China. That's not true. This is where we learn the difference between high quality and low quality traffic. So first things first, if you're selling anything, if you have a product on your website that you're trying to sell, you are looking at the total revenue generated by that piece of traffic. So if we move all the way over to the right, look at the United States, move all the way over to total revenue, we can see that the users coming from the United States have generated $123,000 in the last 28 days. Impressive. Going down, Canada has generated $3,000, almost $4,000. This is where it gets amazingly interesting. Look at this. Even though India is about half of the amount of users compared to Canada, they definitely aren't half of the amount of revenue generated. They are at zero. They're not generating any revenue at all. And neither is China and neither is Japan. However, looking down here, we can see that Brazil is generating a little revenue, especially considering their amount of users, but Taiwan, this is insane. So in just 757 users, they are generating over $10,000. That is a hugely valuable location traffic source. What this means is, if I were Google, I would be looking at this and saying, wow, we should really be creating more content and doing more advertising towards Taiwan because they like our stuff. And at the same time, if they're doing a lot of promotions towards India and China and Japan, it would be a good idea at this point to say, hey, let's back off with these promotions. They aren't paying off very well. So these are examples, India, China, Japan, of low quality traffic in comparison to Taiwan, Canada, and of course, the United States that are all generating high amounts of revenue, especially in comparison to their amount of users. Now, if you're not selling a product and you're running a blog or a news site or an affiliate site, then what you're looking for is engagement. So if we scroll over to the right, we can see average engagement time. There's no surprise that the United States has a really high average engagement time. Canada definitely falling quite quickly, less than half, and then a little better in India, China doing a little bit worse, but not so bad. But this is where things get interesting because when we're looking at this data, we're thinking, China is okay. They're not super engaged, but they're not really necessarily that bad. But if we hover over and change our dates and we go down to the last 12 months instead and click on apply, and now we have a look over at China, we can see that the average engagement time in the past year for people coming from China is 13 seconds. I mean, that is below bottom. That is so bad that I think that they are probably appearing as a search result on Baidu, on China's search engine, and they don't really speak the language. So they end up on Google's shop and they say, what on earth is this? And they just exit. That is my theory. We're going to look at the sources later on to see if that proves to be true. Now, once again, depending on the data you're looking at, you want to make sure that you have the correct date range. For a lot of the data, the last 28 days is going to be spot on. But when it comes to finding low versus high quality traffic, you can't just take the last month and say, okay, this is good, this is bad. You need to look at the big picture. So looking here once again, there's no doubt about it. The United States is the best source of traffic. They're generating the most revenue, the most users, and they also have the highest average engagement time. There's no doubt it's the best piece of traffic. And also scrolling down, we get to confirm that Taiwan is absolutely insane with their revenue generated in comparison to the amount of users being led to their site. And again, we get to further confirm that India, not generating a lot of money, China, not generating any money at all, but Canada, that is actually bringing in across a year less traffic than China and India, is generating so much more money. But then again, if you compare the amount of users here to the amount of users in Taiwan, and then you compare these revenues, you're gonna start seeing that Taiwan is really a source you want to focus on when it comes to growing your high quality traffic. Now, putting it back to 28 days, this means that usually you're going to be reading your data for the 28 days, and usually that's going to be fine depending on the data you're looking at, but you do want to make sure that you take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Now, understanding that the high quality traffic is coming from the United States, especially if you're running a domestic business, is worthwhile to ask, okay, but which cities in the US is performing the best? So what we're gonna do is, where it says country, we're gonna go to the right and click on the plus sign, and then we're gonna go down to geography and then click on city. And now it's pretty interesting again, because we can see that New York is generating a lot of money. We can see that Canada is generating a lot of money from Toronto specifically. We can also see Los Angeles, San Jose, Mountain View, Chicago, etc. Now, looking at the 28 days, again, it makes sense to say that, San Francisco, it's okay if you look at the total revenue here. Also, if you want to have them arranged by total revenue, you can click here and you can see which are doing the most, and then click again. And you can see that the most is actually coming from Taiwan, but that's also because the city is not set. So these are getting segmented better. So it's probably doing a lot better in the US overall. And these are just grouping all the cities in Taiwan together. But it is reasonable to look at Los Angeles and say, it's performing well. It's doing decent, but compared to the other cities, it's not super impressive. However, if we go up and we change the dates again to 12 months and hit on apply, we can see that San Francisco is actually doing amazing. It's the second best from New York, and actually if you split these in half and you split this in half, you're probably doing a little bit better in San Francisco. If you would manage to bump up those users into the same number of users in New York, you'll probably be generating just as much revenue. So again, it's super important that when you look at the data, start off at 28 days, get a nice overview, find the high quality traffic from the low quality traffic, then move up to the date range, put it to 12 months and get a big view picture, dissect that data, and then make your plan. So what have we learned from this data? Well, 3 things. Number 1, US traffic is by far the best and should be the main focus. Secondly, Canada is the second best type of traffic, and that should be the second focus. And third, we should put a lot of experiments and a lot of testing into bringing in more traffic from Taiwan and see how that is going to scale over time. There's no guarantee that bringing in more traffic from Taiwan is going to scale well with the revenue, but it really might, and there's a lot of indicators that would be a good thing to try. Now, we also learned that we're getting a ton of traffic from China, from India, and from Japan, and that they are of really low quality for us, so we shouldn't be putting any type of focus in there at all if we're looking to grow our business. So if I want to remove the city and go back to the original view, I just click on exit here, and then we have the original view. I'm going to set the dates back, 28, apply. So now you know how to find the location of your traffic, how to find high quality versus low quality location traffic, and also what to do with that information. Now remember, you always have analytics intelligence. In the guidebook, if you move over to the next lecture called Locations, you're going to have 20 AI prompts that you can copy paste and get in-depth information about the location of your traffic anytime. Amazingly well done. In the next lecture, we're going to look further at high quality versus low quality traffic and look at the demographics. See you in the next lecture.